In today's video, we're going to talk about my least favorite books in 2024. I have read 102 books as of the recording of this video. I do just want to preface that I am only including books from January 2024 to November 2024. Anything I read in December will go into my 2025 stats, and that is strictly because I need to get this video up in a timely manner. That just because these are my least favorite does not make them bad books, does not make them not worth reading, does not mean people that do not like them. So if they sound interesting, there's something that you love, good for you. Keep reading them. I love that for you. So the first category is fantasy, and my least favorite is Two Twisted Crows by Rachel Gillage. The premise is really interesting in terms of there's these prophecy cards that they're trying to collect, but also if you use these prophecy cards, it degenerates you. This is the second in the Crimson Moth series. I do believe it's the last one. If it's not, it's the last one for me. This book kind of ruined it for me. What I think she did really good in this one was adding multiple point of views. It added a little depth. It added a little something to the story. I think that was done well. My gripe is this did not need to be two books. This could have been one book. It could have been condensed. It felt really... This book I didn't feel like really added to the story, to the world building, to any of that. So it was a pretty big letdown. However, I was not obsessed with the first one. Like, I enjoyed it. I was intrigued enough to figure out what the finish of the story was. One Dark Window is the first one. If you absolutely loved that one, you're probably going to get on with this. The next category is fiction, and my least favorite is The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. I do want to preface, I think this is one of my least favorites because I have learned I do not like game books. And this is about a woman who, there was these novels she grew up reading called Clock Island, and there's a real Clock Island. And a bunch of people who had some connection to Clock Island get invited as adults, and they are essentially trying to win a game. It's one of those books that's like, there's nothing really wrong with it that I can pick out, but I had to sludge through it. I did think about DNFing it a few times. It just didn't work for me, but I think a lot of it is I am not a game book reader, and that's why it did not work for me. The next category is historical fiction, and I picked The Mystery of Miss Christie by Marie Benedict. I think if you're a really big Agatha Christie fan, you may enjoy this. I don't think it's a bad written book. I just wanted more intensity going into this, but essentially Agatha Christie goes missing, and there's investigation where she is. Full disclosure, I have never read an Agatha Christie. Maybe I should. I just thought this was a letdown for what it was. It does have some intrigue. It's not a clear cut, like, there is a lot of mystery and a lot going on. I just wanted kind of more intensity than it gave me. Overall, it was just a bit of a letdown and not really what I was hoping. The next category is horror. I only have a digital copy. Those Cross the River by Christopher Buehlman. This book is something else. So this author goes to a small town to write about the history of this town, which is very dark. Weird things are happening. I don't know if I just could not fully immerse myself in the story. There'll be times I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. I think some of that was written into the story and purposeful, but overall, this is a strange book. It is definitely horror. I can see why people like it, but it's just a strange book that I just couldn't quite get immersed in a way that worked. This category is mystery thriller. I picked A Deadly Inside Scoop by Abby Collette. This is more of a cozy mystery than a dark mystery. I don't have a problem with cozy mystery. My problem with this one was, so this woman is opening trying to like revamp her family's ice cream store in the middle of winter, and then a man shows up dead, and now there's this investigation. But the situations she got herself in were just ridiculous. They weren't funny. I didn't think they added to the story. I think it was just like you're trying to make a story out of it. So it just didn't work for me. I just didn't think there was really much behind it. I didn't feel like there was really great character development or anything like that. I think if you like kind of that like kind of ridiculous cozy mystery, this would work for you, but it did not work. Next category is nonfiction. I don't have a nonfiction that I didn't like. I am, just for the sake of this, going to pick out my least favorite. However, I don't think it's bad. It's called A Clockwork Murder by Steve Jackson. This is about two gentlemen. One of them is obsessed with the movie A Clockwork Murder, or obsessed with the movie A Clockwork Orange. I don't think you have to read the book to understand the book, but it does add context. But in the beginning, they kind of explain what it is, so I think that all works out. The author does a really good job of staying very factual and presenting the facts, very documentary-like in that sense. When it gets to the victim, he does a good job of giving voice to the victim and really letting them shine on their own. The story is very creepy. It's very messed up. Those people are very demented, but overall, I just think it's one of my least favorites just due to the style is very documentary style, and I think that for its purpose, it was well done. The next category is romance, and my least favorite was Barbarian Prince by Michelle M. Pillow. This is a book that literally they wrote a world where everything is just like constantly obsessed with sex. It was terrible. There was no sustenance to the book or the story. I was really disappointed. A journalist who's going to this world because there's multiple worlds to try and learn about the like marriage situation of this world, and they have this like jewel that like lights up if it's them. The problem is that then after they like pick it, the man can't talk, and there's all these problems, and if they would just use words, like all these problems would be solved. Or if the journalist did any kind of investigation into what the process was prior to it, this wouldn't be a thing. It was just such a ridiculous book, and so many things. It's like this story, one, did not need to be almost 500 pages. It was just terrible. If this cuts out in weird ways a couple of times, I keep getting phone calls. I apologize. I think I finished the one I was doing, so I'm going to go down to the next one, which is science fiction. And I picked this book not because it's technically bad, it was just my least favorite in a series, but it's Chance by Matthew Fitzsimmons. It's part of the Constance series. The first one, Constance, I really enjoyed. I gave it a very high rating. This one, Chance, I was unfortunately a little disappointed in what it was going to be, but there is a clone who comes back from being like, he's one of the most infamous clones for being cloned so many times. It's kind of like a Daredevil, and so if he dies, like he just like clones back. But one of his clones, he comes back, and now he's accused of murder, and he's got to solve it. And there's a lot of things. It's definitely an intriguing book. It's engaging. The concept is interesting. There's still good characters, like character building. All of that is well done. It just wasn't as well, and I can't exactly pinpoint what it was that just made me not enjoy it as much as the first one, but I still think it's a really well written story. The next category is young adult, and I'm just going to preface this that this is an entire category or an entire collection. I read like the last 5 of this series. It's The Night World by L.J. Smith. This is a terrible series. There's no sustenance to these stories. There could be so much more depth, so much more character development, so much more just like to the stories in general. I understand it's YA, but I've read other YA books this year. 2 of them were in my favorites. I will link that for you to check out. But those can be very well done. You can have a YA story with a plot, with character development, with different depths and layers, and this was just so surface level. And it's not that like just it just doesn't feel like it was like genuinely tried. It was not at all a well done book. So now that we've gone through each category, we are going to go over my top 5 least favorites. So starting at number 5, Those Across the River by Christopher Roman. Again, I just couldn't get into it. It was just weird. It just didn't work. Number 4, A Deadly Inside Scoop by Abby Collette. The situations she gets herself in are just ridiculous. I did not think they added to the story. Didn't work for me. Number 3, Two Twisted Crows by Rachel Gillich. This did not need to be 2 books. It just ruined it for the series. I didn't think it added more value to it. I think it was just kind of, it was a letdown, and I wish there would have been maybe more world building that made it worthwhile. Number 2, A Barbarian Prince by Michelle M. Pillow. If you want to read a book strictly about smut, nothing else to it, a world where everybody just lives and breathes smut, this is great. Go for it. And number 1, Night World series by L.J. Smith. There's no sustenance to it. There's no value to it. It's such a surface level story, each one of them. They don't build on each other in any way that makes it like they get better with each one. It's just not a series worth reading. But the books together, like the covers, those are all of my least favorite books that I have read in 2024. Let me know if you've read any of these, any of your least favorites, what you think, any of that down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.